then just to make sure I can be ready for the pre-sales. I don't have the login.
Okay. Oh wait, hold on. I need to. Oh, never mind.
Welcome to the 2-month review, the weekly podcast brought to you by Open Letter and 3%, in which you take a giant book, break it down bit by bit, section by section, talk about it, analyze it, have some fun. I am Chad Post from Open Letter Books, joined as always by Brian Wood, author of Joytime Killbox, who needs to go grab something.
Oh no, I just realized I plugged my computer in, but it's not charging. So we'll just go until the battery runs out. It's fine.
Yeah, well, that sounds fun.
Welcome.
Good deal. So this
Yeah.
is our final episode on The Remembered Part, the third volume in Rodrigo Frazan's triptych. We are covering the whole book. We are done, all 750 whatever pages, 60 pages. And that's that. So this is it. We made it. The very first season was about the invented part, and season number 19 comes to a close now, finishing out the whole trilogy. So how do you feel, Brian?
I'm exhausted.
Yeah.
In a good way, but yeah, it was. Woo! We made it.
We made it. I didn't count it up, but it's got to be like 612, like almost 2,000 pages.
Yeah, I traveled with this book, and at some point I just had to crack it in half because it takes up a weird amount of space in your briefcase when you're traveling and flying, and you're trying to put that under your seat. And I'm like, well, I can't. I'm tall, and this is a small plane, and this is a big book. So
every time I travel, and every time that I get into something like this, I'm reminded more and more that I really like ebooks. I really like ebooks. I think I have so many reasons to like them. Like, not only is it convenient, you can download things basically anywhere, anytime, but also, my eyesight's going. I'm old. So like I can just adjust things. I don't have to wear my stupid reading glasses, which I will always on during this whole time. So like, I'm pro.
My house is in storage right now, and
I know.
Packing up books and then moving books is like really annoying when you have a lot of books. And I just keep thinking, why couldn't I have collected stamps?
So for anyone, let's see if I can do this. So here are a couple books boxes that are supposed to go to the basement. All these are supposed to go to the basement because all these are getting filled, and all those there's books everywhere, and I don't want to carry any one of those down to the basement at all. Period. So they're going to sit there probably for the next year. No, I wouldn't do that. I'm, get some bulk if you carry that shit up and down the stairs.
No, I had a good time. I had a good time reading it. I think it was very purposefully repetitive, very purposely fragmented. We can get into that later, obviously, but I got the sense that the author had a good time writing it, and that comes across when you're reading it. And so there's the joy in that. But yeah, I mean, it's very similar to like Duck's Newburyport, where you get the rhythms. You start like oh, I know it's going to be this, and then it'll connect it to something, and it's going to go on a side, and then you start like knowing the rhythms and knowing the patterns, and then you're like, oh, I've got 400 more pages.
Very true.
Which is fine, but sometimes you're like, yeah, I'm ready to get off the ride now. And you're like, oh no, we're still going. Okay, here's another hill, here's another bump, here's another corkscrew.
To be fair, that's why I like reading it under the guys or under the rubric or whatever the aegis of this podcast is kind of the best way. Like, you get your breaks in between. You read like a certain number of pages each week, so like even the repetitions don't feel super like as repetitive as they could. There's also like they're kind of new at that moment, in a way, or you can re-enjoy them without feeling like it's right on top of one another.
Yeah, and like like the writer says in this book, there's these layers of art, and it can be the human story, it can be connecting it to something more universal and truth, and then there's the stylist. And yeah, this was just highly stylized, and that style persists. And I think that's what mattered most in this work.
Yeah, absolutely. Before we get even deeper into it, though, we should take a moment to point out that Germany is not in the Women's World Cup anymore, and I just like to just make sure that that is noted.
Germany is not in the World Cup. What happened?
They got kicked. They lost.
To who?
They drew with Korea, and Morocco beat Colombia. So Morocco and Colombia move on, and Germany, the second ranked team in the world, is out at the group stage.
Man, if the USA can make it past Sweden, look out.
USA is going to get trounced. They don't look good at all.
Yeah. A fun aside with that is I really like how Carly Lloyd is being people are upset with her. Like, yeah, what does she know about women's soccer? I don't know. What right does she have to criticize women's soccer?
My favorite
US women's soccer. It's like these people that are mad at her, it's like, yeah, she's like done it and won it and was at the highest level, and she's saying this isn't good enough.
Yeah.
How dare you? How dare you?
For anyone who doesn't follow Women's World Cup closely, which is tricky in the US, I have to admit, like the timing on all this is so wacky. Like I have to readjust from the Latvia time, which was easy and everything was free online. But the Carly Lloyd criticized the US team, people got pissed off. But what's awesome about that is just like in men's sports, there's always like the old people who are like, it was better when I played. Like this stuff is shit. And people get really pissed at them. And that's the same across genders. And I love that. That's like the sport punditry is bullshit, no matter if you're male or female.
I don't know. I've watched every match, and yeah, USA is not looking great. She's kind of.
There's no links, no attacking.
I can't speak to their efforts, but I can definitely speak to like, man, the offense and the connection between the defense and the offense looks awful.
One of my favorite criticisms of like sport hot takes is when they're talking about like effort and intensity, actually, because it's like especially related to baseball, they're like, he's not intense enough, and it's like, what does that even fucking matter? Like, what is he supposed to be there being like, I'm gonna give it a crush? Like, that doesn't mean anything.
The other thing I noticed too, watching this, and it reminds me of the part where the writer was talking about Nicole Kidman in here. And like, yeah. I always wonder, like, do I have like when I'm watching Women's World Cup, do I have like this like bad male gaze when because like I can't help but watch some of the teams and like, ooh, which players do I find attractive? I like that player, you know, like that aspect to it. But then I realize I do the same thing with the men. Like, oh, I'd totally do that, dude. I like number 15 for some country I've never heard of. Like, that's my favorite player. Why? Look at him. Look at him. He's gorgeous.
It's interesting that
I like sports just to look at the human specimens, basically. I don't even know if I like athletics.
Soccer players are fit as shit, man. Like that is the most fit sport athlete, I think. I also think that it's the sport with the least amount of body variance. Like almost everyone looks the same. Like they're all like the same sort of like some fairly slender, strong legs. Like they like look very similar in their like athleticism compared to like football, where you have like the 900-pound fat guy on the front line and then like the super thin 7-foot tall wide receiver. Like there's like more physical variance, but soccer is like is one where it's like, wow, all these people, like aside from their haircuts, which is why the men spend so much time on their haircuts, and they're like almost indistinguishable from behind. Although I did go to and we'll get into the book, I do have Latvian jokes for everyone. I did go to a Latvian soccer match, like I told you, and that the variance is pretty wild. There's a guy who's like my size, and then there'd be someone who's like 6'6" and like 100 pounds larger, and just is dominating against like the guy that looked like me looked like he was like a JV player from a high school that just wandered onto the field, and everyone else is like a real person, like a girl.
My two favorite type of football players are the Eastern European football player, usually like a Slav, that looks like they're trying out for like a Russian mafia tattoo job. Like we're just like, wow, that person has some haggard looking
like pull their shorts way up when they do the free kick, like they're like getting ready, like they're gonna go swim the ocean, and they're in their speedos. I saying.
I love the skinny white dude with like neck tattoos and kneecap tattoos. And
Oh,
then I love the Central American soccer player that has really bright hair, but somehow carved things, short hair with carved things like randomly all over the place, like the same way you'd see like a car that's like a really cheap car that gets fixed up with all these little add-ons, like that's their hair. Those are my two favorite. Like, yeah,
it isn't great. I love women's soccer so much. I
World
love
Cup, great.
competition
Yeah.
so much. So, anyways, not right now, buddy.
With me when you're done.
Okay. Okay. So about the book.
So we read a book. Yeah.
We read a book. Also, I'm back from Latvia, where the only joke I have about Latvia this week is that their meat is so wet. All their meat is so wet in Latvia.
Gross,
Like,
Chad.
grossest
Stop.
thing ever.
Stop.
It's so gross.
The phrasing.
I know. There's worse phrasing, but seriously, like everything's.
So your favorite part in this book was the very hard to read typewriter part about the karmas, I bet. Was it?
In this section? Yeah.
Yeah.
That part is great. That part is wonderful.
That's a great bit.
Fill up with karmas is like from that part right before then. So our protagonist, the ex-writer, is on his way to Mount Abracadabra to find Penelope's son, his nephew, to rescue him, because apparently, as turns out in here, they didn't want, Mama Grandma didn't want him. Penelope was going to the insane asylum, and she didn't want him, a loser writer, because all writers are losers. There's nothing worse than being a loser writer, to raise her grandson. So she had people like essentially kidnap him on the night in question. That's been through all three books, in which something weird happened. He wanders off. They can't find him, so on and so forth. Supposedly, the karmas have kidnapped him and taken him back to Mount Abracadabra, have him in a private school, blah, 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 blah. And so the ex-writer's on the way there. And on the way there, he is stuck in an airport where the karmas are. They're all filling up the same airport. And he reads his sister's journal, Karma Confidential, which in the American typewriter script, which has sort of been, we've talked about like what its function has been or what it represents before, is like the other part of his mind, if in a bicameral mind situation, or Penelope's voice, or whatever, something from the beyond. And here it's Penelope, and it's just a string. How many pages does this go on for? It's just a string of different observations or jokes. It's 12 pages long, 13 pages long, with just like slash line in between the different observations and sort of ask jokes.
Starts on 7-11 is when it starts.
It ends at 7:23. But there's ones like it's just observations about the karmas. All of them sing all of the time, suddenly and without warning, like in musical comedies. For some strange reason, they all seem absolutely convinced that they sing very well, but they don't. End bit. Another one, thinking about thinking the same thing is a way to think about nothing. Like there's these little witty aphorisms and observations. But yeah, I love this part.
If somebody knows, I would love to know if, like, if you're speaking Mexican style Spanish, do they have the vocal? Can you do the vocal fry like they do in Los Angeles? Because I hear that when I'm thinking of karmas, like it makes you think of Kardashians or the Kardashians, like right, the oh my god, like and when I'm reading this, I have that vocal fry going, and I'm curious, is there something similar to that?
Yeah, if anyone's listening that has an answer to that, please let us know.
I would love to know if terrible myopic high society Mexican family will have that same sound. In the beginning was the word, and the word was bye.
Adios.
I love it. It's so good. Just rubbing their. I wish I could stay pregnant for 3 years.
Yeah, it sounds just like it's like a little bit like Lola from what's that, the masturbation show cartoon, the one that Nick Kroll show.
Oh, Big Mouth.
Big Mouth, yes, okay. Yeah. Lola from Big Mouth has that same
had to be lost there, but I don't know what cartoons you're watching. I think it's called hentai, but sure. I don't know where this is going, Chad. I'm really confused, man.
I think if you've ever seen Big Mouth masturbation show, is pretty accurate.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, yep. So, what part did you like? So you've been off for a few weeks. You missed the solo episode, the least listened to episode in the history of the podcast, which is unfortunate because I left it all on the field there, man.
That's saying something.
And then Kaya filled in last week with something that I do want to come back to at the end. If you didn't listen to it,
Sure.
related to the next book that we have of Frazan's Melville that's coming out, because it seems almost like a thematic continuation of the end of this book, where we'll get to it later. But otherwise, you're catching up on the whole thing. Have you had thoughts, concepts, pieces that you wanted to talk about?
Again, if it's already been discussed, we can move right along. But I was really interested with the idea of fragmentation in this book in particular, especially like when we're connecting it with some of the pop culture references, right? With the albums in particular, these weird like breakup, fragmented albums that are like barely stitched together, but that's what makes them kind of interesting. That's what makes them wonderful. That's what makes them to listen over and over again. Like when we talk about Tusk and Fleetwood Mac, right? And gosh, the band can't stand each other and they're all in their own separate rooms. Well, this is my song. This is my song. Like it doesn't go together at all. Like it's bonkers. You feel like you're having a stroke when you're listening to that album, or the Beatles album, or or even some of the film references. And I like how that fragmentation was mirrored in this as well. And like maybe there's some parts that are frustrating with it. Where like, really, this again? I have to listen to this rant again, or but how he's fragmenting these things together to tell the story. Because I mean, the ending is it's so sweet, and it's almost like I don't know, you want to like smack your lips and like swallow it out of your mouth because it's so cloyingly sweet and endearing. And you're like, really, really, really? And even the writer knows, like, yeah, really, really, really.
Maybe. I have a couple of things on that. But real quick, we had someone commented about how they're surprisingly like that section since it is such a splenetic rant that didn't adequately support its emotional climax. And I wonder, this is from Benjamin Chambers, who I know started by reading this book. I think that section is a bit of a callback, like because the karmas have been throughout the other two books, and they're always like this foil,
really big in the first.
Really big in the first, in particular, with the whole story of Penelope, the green cow thing, the diamonds, the marriage, all that stuff all takes place there. It's kind of like a shorthand gag. Like I think it's funnier with all the past references to the karmas than it would be coming at it for the first time. Because I mean, we just read this book. I don't remember how much the karmas are described in here, aside from this section.
Yeah, not a ton.
I don't think that they're here as much, but they're like a big figure, and they are like a centerpiece of the book Mantra, which is still coming out later. That is essentially the karma story, or the karmas are part of that, and that is the book that like the ex-writer refers to frequently as the book about Mexico that he was commissioned to write. That in real life, had analogy, whatever the analog is, this book Mantra. So there's more to it. So I think like that whole universe, it makes it make more sense or land a little bit better than it does without the context of the karmas. But let's talk about the end. So the end really is like, so the part that you're talking about being saccharine is that he goes there, he goes to private school, he waits, the kids come out, he finds Penelope's son, his nephew, and he embraces him to like lead him off into, I don't even know what the final line is, probably just the end. Well, aside from the end, that they'll go off somewhere and he'll think of something, he'll do something. Okay, so my question for you to complicate this. Well, first, what's your take on that? And then I have two complications.
Oh, I don't have a take on it. I mean, I liked. I don't know. I like the way it kind of reconnects with the obsession with Blade Runner and the obsession with 2001, where there's like this kind of absent father or searching for the father kind of aspect to those, and some of the questions that those raise. And then there's kind of like this, the book was feeling like it was nihilistic, right? What happens to a writer that can't write? He's burning book. He's no longer like, you're not reading, you're not writing, like, oh, this is the end. This is and it's like, no, I have this, and so this is something to live. So it's kind of like a little bait and switch with that part, and it was unexpected. But at the same time, yeah, like I could see the mile markers pointing to that. So it's very satisfying in that it has that inevitability, but it's also has some unexpectedness to it as well.
So. Yeah. I mean, to have like such a sincere sort of ending to a book that's like loaded with irony and is like real different. So, but I have so
and that's super tough to earn, right?
Yeah.
That's a really hard thing to do.
Yeah, I think it works because it's not too. I mean, it's pretty saccharine, but it's not too. I don't know, and it's not too far in that regard. I don't think. I mean, it could be way cheesier. I mean, the cheesiest part is like when he walks up and he asks, "Do you remember me?" And the boy, looking at him as if you were first an invention and then a dream and at last a memory, answers, "Of course I remember you." And then he takes out Mr. Tripp, blah blah blah. Okay, but. So here's a question. So
I believe the children are our future. Teach them well and let them lead the way. Show them all the beauty they put. Oh, sorry.
So that is the intro song and exit outro song now. I didn't have anything. I didn't have anything at all. So the ending is Benjamin chimed in again, said that the ending is cloying and hard to accept. Book strength lie elsewhere. So here is what I'm gonna like try, and I don't know that I have not thought this through. I'm just gonna go with it. So page 740, we have the bit where he talks about the seven capital scenes, as postulated by that book, the manual for people who want to become writers. And the seven capital scenes are 1, to vanquish the monster, 2, rags to riches, 3, the search, 4, the comedy, 5, the tragedy, 6, the rebirth, and 7, the journey out of the shadows and into the light. Okay, so, and then there's plot 8, which for him was like the eighth passenger bursting out from the insides and not from the brain, devouring all the previous capital scenes one by one. Okay, and then the next page, he goes on to talk about being where the green cow was, that Penelope drank the milk from, so on and so forth. And I think it's implied that she got like some of her ideas from there. And after drinking that milk, what he's allowed to see and to live are random scenes from alternate realities around his reality, answers to a multiple choice test, cells interlinked within cells interlinked within cells interlinked within one stem that was him, as if they were memories based on his memory, designed and modified by the young Dr. Anna Celine, the catalog of furniture to decorate his interior life with, the things he would see and that nobody would believe. Now, so this Anna Celine, that is from Blade Runner 2049, which I still have yet to see. Have you seen that? I said I was going to watch. I said I was going to watch it after the one that I did alone that had a lot to do with it and with Pale Fire being in it. But I just didn't. And so I tried to watch Fate of the Furious because I'm obsessed with these movies right now because they're so fucking dumb. They're so fucking dumb. But anyways, I haven't watched it, but that's the Blade Runner thing in reference to like the replicants, in reference to the fake memories, in reference to what you believe, and also this thing of like alternate realities, which sort of ties back to the invented part and his concept of going in, getting hit by the God particle, being out and, being able to rewrite everything in history to his own regard. That these things
it makes me also think of the referenced Philip K. Dick short story.
Yes. Yeah.
Where the artificial, the spaceship computer is going to give you a memory to since you've woken up from your dream before you're supposed to. Right. Let me give you a dream. Yeah.
Right. So then what follows are sections that are lettered A, B, C, D, so on and so forth. And each one of them sort of relates to these 7 capital scenes. And if you take this at verbatim, they are random scenes from alternate realities around his reality, including ones that are like clearly go against everything that we've seen so far, like number B, in which he that the Pertusato and Nicolosito, lives instead of dies and becomes IKEA, and yet IKEA's book, and then there's IKEA's book comes out in number C, and he thinks it's pretty good, it's better, and it's not that this seems good to him, but doesn't seem bad either. These are alternate reality things. F, Mama Grandma's in a cave, they're gonna shoot each other, there's a big firefight. H, I, J, blah, blah, blah. And then this section is X, is the 8th one. So is this section even real? Or is this a version of an alternate reality? Is this a Jacob's Ladder situation? In which...
No, I thought that too, because it also kind of reminds me of, that the ending for Blade Runner, the 1982 one, right? Like,
yeah.
Is this a happy ending?
Yeah.
Right, as they're driving off, him and Rachel, and
And here's another that would be really funny, is what if this was just some random fucking kid? It's not him at all. It's not Penelope's son. It's not his nephew. It's a kid that's like wanders out of school. He's like, "Do you remember?" He's like, "Yeah, of course I do. Yeah, totally." And like this random ex-writer who's sent into exile because his book pissed off everyone, and the government just kidnaps this random kid, and they're going to go off.
There's this YouTube channel that I follow. It's called "There I Ruined It." And it's this person that takes songs, and you're like, oh, I can ruin Frank Sinatra by mixing it with something that's terrible. That you're basically doing that with books. There, I ruined it. What if it's just a random kid that he's going to kidnap, and the kid's like, sure, mister.
Exactly.
Are we going? There doesn't have to be candy in the back of the van. I'll go back there. Don't worry. There, I ruined it. This sweet sentimental moment is like, oh no.
No. Maybe just bullshit. I mean, I take it at face value, and I know that like the reason I wanted to mention the thing from last week is that Melville is about Herman Melville's dad essentially telling stories to his son, and the idea of that being like the seed for all of his imagination and creation and storytelling, and like the father-son relationship, and that as like a gift, what we call it, inheritance, so on and so forth, being part of that book sort of theme ties into this, as like he reunites with the nephew, is going to be sort of a stepfather to him, and then we get Melville, in which there is a relationship between a father and a son, and the storytelling bit again, which I don't think Vander Heyden sent in the full manuscript yet, but I think it was due 4 days ago, so it should be here soon enough, and we should have galleys soon enough.
My gut reaction with this was he never made it out of the particle accelerator, and I take it as being that he was successful in that, and this is all like all these fragments are these Jacob's Ladder type things, including this invented thing with the child. And I could be completely wrong and off base, and maybe it's the Mona Lisa smile, where it's not important to know what's the right answer or not. It's what did you perceive from reading it. I took it as he successfully died at CERN, and this is the fragments, the remnants, the radiation fuzz of the universe is what we have here.
Or he drowns at the very beginning of the first book.
Okay. It could go even before.
That's when he knew he was going to be a writer, is as he was drowning, he saw everything that he would write in his whole future ahead of him, and there we are.
Except that falls apart, because how could he wouldn't have been able to have, there's too many references that are after when the drowning would take place that actually did take place. So you couldn't hallucinate things that haven't existed yet.
Says you.
that we know about, that actually came true.
Maybe we're just part of the hallucination. Maybe this is all a simulation. Speaking of Mona Lisa, did you see that crazy, I don't know if it's real or not, but the viral meme of like where they asked the AI whatever to generate a drawing of Mona Lisa from 2023, and it's just like it's so like I don't even have the words. Like it's much more salacious than, I mean, it's as salacious as you might expect from an AI in 2023 drawing the Mona Lisa, but it's like such a different vibe. It's so weird. I hate this AI stuff so much.
Yeah, the only thing I like from AI is when the people make commercials with them.
Yeah, the commercials are wonderful. The commercials are
Yeah.
kind of genius.
Can you make me a pizza commercial from the 80s? There you go.
And they're like,
Yeah.
they got like 12 fingers and like, nothing makes any sense. that is really the top of it all. So, when you say that about the dying in CERN and never getting out, let me see if I can find, I don't remember where it is in here, but there's a moment where he's in the bar and it's reporting on him being in CERN.
Yeah, that idea of like reflections, I really like
is.
that. Just to see himself like on the security camera, to see like, I know this person, I recognize that wait, that's me, right?
Right. So,
Yeah.
so this is on page 726 where he's there, blah, blah, blah. It says, he recounts how it was reported that authorities had finally, quote, declassified information about what had happened on the previous Tuesday at the CERN particle accelerator in Switzerland. Like, what the fuck time is? How long does this take place? Like if that took place the previous Tuesday, like that's at most a week and a couple days ago that he got out of there, goes through all this. Like the timeline of like these 3 books is really like compressed and nonsensical and not important because there's a lot of talk of like the Billy Pilgrim, the time space continuum being broken, so on and so forth, everything that goes wrong with that. However, it is, if you're trying to like, if you want to make that argument, if you want to make the argument that he's still in that particle accelerator and things that work, this is a piece that would point to that. And also,
that's where that kind of like my spidey senses jumped, was there. Because then like it obviously doesn't have to make sense clearly, but then that's like the idea of like IKEA pays the bail money and gets them out and stuff. I'm thinking, well, obviously I don't want to like, I'm okay suspending disbelief, but it's like, man, how much would bail be if you held somebody hostage? And like, I'm pretty sure they just will let you go right away. And like a week later, you're at a bar, like, yeah, that's me holding people hostage. I'm going to be going to jail pretty soon here for good. But
I'm pretty sure there are probably like do not flee laws in place too, where you don't leave Switzerland and go through America to Mexico.
Interpol's going to swoop you up pretty quick there as you fly out of the country.
So things don't quite.
No, but yeah. So I thought, he may not have never made it out of there. Okay, that might. Okay,
that might be the moment we're all living in. Yeah. That's fun. It's super fun. Overall, like the book is really enjoyable. I mean, it's just really fun. It's got so many ideas, too many ideas, and to certain people, I'm sure. It is overloaded with stuff, but I love it. Like it's fun, and like that's why I went right from like last week's episode and just read the rest of the book because I'd been sort of waiting to like get to this point where I can finish it all off and be there. So yeah.
Season 19, we made it from several time zones. It's been a
wet meat.
Been a fun one. Wet meat.
I don't know how to describe it, but like bacon is not crispy, and not like it's not like Canadian bacon. It's like just wet, and like even the hamburgers are like they're not juicy. They're just there's like a consistency issue, as if they'd like stuffed the meat full of like some sort of water product to like make it different. It's so bizarre. I'm so glad to be back here where you get like crispy, firm meat. I'm so happy for firm meat instead of something I feel like I have to drink. Yeah, I don't know. Is there any other parts from this? Like we split this up so that these last few parts are like so short. By contrast, but I don't know if there's anything else from this section. We get the kinks back again, which is fun. And other than that,
yeah, I've got a line I want to read. I've got to see if I can find it real quick. Oh boy, it might be from like 200 pages ago, but we'll see.
I know there's like that's one of the problems.
Oh, come on, so much Blade Runner. No, here it is. Mine was from page 587.
Solid.
So a while back, but this was a line I love. It's at the very top. And that's what happened, and that's what he said. And the scientist let him speak, like someone putting up with the tantrum of a spoiled child, silently staring at him. I almost feel like it's this reference of like the reader is the scientist and the writer is this tantrum, like this spoiled child. Let me tell you about the Beatles. Let me tell you about. Have I ever told you about Station to Station David Bowie? I used to bring women back to my place, and I would, explain these albums to them, and they would just kind of like stare at this spoiled child, like, okay, are we doing the David Bowie thing again? Oh, please tell me how Nabokov did this. Please tell me how.
There's also, just to go back to this thing again, because you reminded me, because I was flipping back to like the lines that Steve I had marked one as a line of the week, is that he has the brain tumor and is losing his memory. And like the flipping between burning the pages in the desert and getting his nephew from the school are both in some ways in this book presented as a contemporaneous events. So he may be just completely fucked up and not none of this is going. None of this is happening.
Perhaps he'd read too many comic books and seen too many B science fiction movies when he was a kid, because things don't work like that.
Yeah.
But no, I just love the idea of the scientist just staring at him and just letting this spoiled child go on this rant. He's like, okay.
Oh, yeah.
And I know that there had been some readers that are like, man, I really don't like this writer, because they just keep going on and on and on. And it's like, oh yeah, I know.
Yeah,
I fully understand the characters like this. This reference to it here made me chuckle.
So as a way, I don't know if you have another line that you want to read, but the one that I have is not even really like my favorite line of the week, but it's a perfect segue, is on 740. The plot that suddenly, this is where you're talking about the different plots, and he's talking about the plot 8. The plot that suddenly sees itself from outside and asks itself what's going on and what can I do to get out of here, out of this loving and burning building, and at last enter what's over there, or vice versa, which is very similar to Mulligan's Stew, which is our next book, in which there are characters that are stuck in a book that are trying to get out of that book because the writer sucks and is way more awful than the writer and the ex-writer in here, in a totally different pretentious way, and less. Maybe he's got some rants. He's surely got some rants, but less of like the repetitive rants and more like just unhinged, like bad academic, pure melancholy rants. And his writing is terrible, and the characters within his writing are trying to escape. And that is essentially where we can begin with Mulligan's Stew in a few weeks, in a month. But yeah, I thought that was super funny that like that plot 8 is essentially the plot of the next book that we're reading for the 2-month review.
Oh, I can't wait.
I got your copy.
Fantastic.
Like this is the first time I've been able to talk about it with the new version here. So beautiful blue spine for anyone who's watching, fun cover with a guy who looks like he's like either constipated or going insane. Nice. Feels so sexy to hold. There is an earlier version of this that was published by Delkey for so many years that a lot of people own that. And I doubt this person is listening, but there is a comment on the website that I'll reply to today asking if you can follow along and still participate in the conversation if you don't buy the new version, which of course that's totally fine. And when I post the reading schedule, I will try and match up the pages between the old and the new versions so that we'll have both of them listed, since I think there are probably a considerable number of people, like with JR, that have the old version and not the new one. The new one is much easier to read, by the way. It's not as crammed on the page. So if you are one of those people who likes like the much more readable version, I highly recommend this. It's like a better size and everything. But I'll put both page numbers on there.
Because the original Dalkey is the one that looks like it was made with Microsoft Paint, right?
It basically was made
like
with
super, it's like super 90s. It looks really like 90s are back in, like that thing. You're gonna want that original version.
And it's 9:6, so it's bigger than this one in this way, but like the font, like for anyone looking, the font on here is legible. The font on that one is very tight. It's very tight for whatever reason. So it's like just not as easy to read through. And this book is wild. There's a straight up mathematical text within the middle of it. There's like lots of bits that are just like kind of bizarre that we'll just have to puzzle out, list upon list upon list, sections where he asks himself questions that don't really have logical answers. It's everything you can think of is in this book. There's a play that's based off of like a Ulysses, off of the Ulysses play. There's like any kind of shit you can imagine will be. There's a baseball scorecard, as pointed out in the essay about this. It is a grand, in the grand tradition of Delkey books, in which a book is about someone writing a book. There's also baseball, and so that's fun. There's drawings, any and everything you can think of, it's in here. So be sure.
Right
and someone says, "Hi, what about the old gray covered Grove Press paperback?" I'm 90% sure that is the same as the Delkey one in terms of page numbers, Paul. I'm almost positive. I don't have that one physically here, so I can't check it. But I'm certain that the purple Mulligan Stew from like 96 or whatever it is, that, or maybe it's before then, that Delkey did, was just an offset printing of that other one. This one is a whole new scan, typeset, redesigned, and as a result of that, there's an ebook version for everyone who is a pro ebook reader. This one won't break. I mean, look at the difference in size between these two books. This is like ridiculous. Like, I used to think Mulligan Stew is like one of the biggest books I've read. Like, it's so long. It's like 522 pages in here, and that is
Hold my beer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Every time I set this down, the table shakes. Like, it's so intense. I don't know. You got any final words for this season?
No, it's awesome to finish the trilogy, and I hope you guys maybe package something together where you could buy all three. I hope there's like a box set. That'd be really cool.
There's one place that can make the boxes. We just have to put the books in ourselves. So. And since the university decided to take away all of our packing space and all the space for our library and offices, it'll be a little tricky, but we'll figure it out.
Awesome.
There ain't nothing like a university to make your life easier.
Oh, another season in the books. Can't wait for 20.
Number 20. 20. We're getting old. Yep. 20. Until then, rate and review us on X or whatever the fuck it's called. And wherever you get your podcast, tell your friends, download, listen, follow along. If you read the 3% website, which is very easy to find, it's just 3%. It's not 3%.com. It's on the Rochester thing, so you kind of have to search for it, but it's rochester.edu/3% written out. There are posts every single day this month for Women in Translation Month, and that is where you will get the full schedule for season 20 for Mulligan Stew, which pages, which weeks, and all that information. I believe we will have some guests on next season, a variety of different people. So we'll try and either have those as add-ons or live on this recording. Till then, I mean, think about the children.